Hi, everyone. I'm Dyllan McGee, founder and executive producer of Makers. And I am coming to you live from Montana, new location. I'm here for a few weeks, but Makers at Home Live goes on. And this week, for those of you Makers fans, we launched our new podcast, DNA of a Maker, with our extraordinary new Makers host, Lilliana Vazquez. And Lilliana is with us today, and we're going to talk about the podcast. And I'm particularly excited about this conversation because as we talk a lot right now about what it means to be an ally, or as we like to say at Makers, an accomplice, there's so much gold in this podcast series in terms of understanding who we are as individuals and opening our minds to different perspectives. So I'm excited to talk to Lilliana about it. So let's bring her on and you can learn a little bit more about Lilliana and what we got cooking. Hold on. Here we go. There she is.
Hi.
Hi.
I love this. No technical issues. This is amazing.
It is amazing because this is my first one from a new location and we've had really spotty internet and I was like,
no, this is great. It's so good to see your face. I love it. How are you?
I'm great, Lilliana. Look at your pretty backdrop. You've got like chic hats in the background and
listen, I don't go outside without a hat. I don't. It's
for
like
sun or for style?
Sun. 100%. I am that person at the beach that like sees people without hats and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, what about this?
I might be one of those people on the beach.
No!
It's the worst. Look at this.
Dylan!
It's all leathery and look.
No, it's not. No, it's not. I've seen
It's all
you
right.
very close.
It's all right. I just love, Elizabeth, the producer of our podcast, Elizabeth
Yeah.
Bonnell, who we have to do like a major shout out. You're the best too.
Huge.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, she's a sun worshiper too. And every time she goes out, I'm like, no oil. So I'm not that bad.
You guys, sunscreen and hats, please. It's
Okay.
the peak of summer.
That's all we need, Makers. We're done. We don't need to talk about the podcast. Just wear a hat.
No.
All right. So you've been in Montauk for how long?
I came out to Montauk March 13th. And I have been here since March 13th. I live in New York City, like you, and I have gone into the city twice just for like very short periods of time. We've been out here. My husband's been working from home. I have been working from home. I can actually, you can kind of see around me. So like, you see my green screen?
Yes.
And then that's like a full camera setup right there. And that's like one of the 2 studios that exist at my house right now. But yeah, I will say this, we've been so lucky. Montauk is such an incredible community and we come out here year round and it was so beautiful to be here and be part of this community in the off season, because that's when you get to know the people that really support this place. And it was amazing to be a part of it and they welcomed us and we did our part. And, it's been awesome. It's a little different now because it's July. So there's a lot of people getting out here and I know people want to break from the city. They want to be outside with their families and I totally get that. I just always am hoping that people are so respectful of the community that lives here year round so that people are wearing their masks. Like just wear a mask.
I love the social hashtag that's going around, like wear a damn mask.
Yes.
I mean,
it's not that hard.
And it's just be thoughtful to yourself and your neighbors.
100%. Like just respect yourself enough to respect other people. It's really simple.
It is. All right. Well, let's tell our audience a little bit about you. You showed us your studio, but so you are the host of E! Network's morning show, which has, right? What's the official name?
So I host a show called E! News and Pop of the Morning on E! And obviously both of those shows are currently off the air as we kind of readapt and realign how we're getting back on the air. But prior to going on hiatus, we had launched E! News for the first time live from New York City. E! News in its entire history had never been done in New York. It had never been live. And to me, like nothing is more exciting than live television. And so we launched on January 6th. And unfortunately, our last show was on March 12th. So we're excited to come back. And I think, this has been an important time for us to really reassess what's important and what are the kind of stories that we can tell on e-news. And I am so grateful for what is happening in the world right now, because I think it shows people that you can tell stories that you maybe thought your audience wouldn't want to hear. Like, we want to be better people. Our audience, whether they like entertainment or politics, at the end of the day, want to be kinder, better human beings. And I am hopeful that when we go back and we get to program our show again, there is so much space for those kinds of stories, because those are the stories that we are telling on DNA of a Maker. And those are the stories that people want to be inspired by.
Well, I'm inspired by you. And it cracks me up. We had a little moment just listening to you just now say, like, you love live. I mean, this live stuff is totally stressful to me. And we had this great example of when you and I were doing a little bonus part of DNA of a Maker to explain the background of it. And you and Elizabeth, and you're all talking, you're giving me all this information, and then it like goes in one ear and out the other, and I'm like, I'm not and then you, like, these beautifully eloquent words come out and into the microphone. No, but you said, I asked you, and you said there was a moment with your mom when she was nervous before you were going live, and there's something about when the cameras go on, your brain goes into like calm mode.
It does. I know that it's weird. It's like this weird thing happens, but I think that when you come into a live space, I am no spring chicken when it comes to television. I have been doing this for over a decade. And I think what I've been doing for the last decade has prepared me to feel really confident when I step into that space. And I will say this, like, part of being really strong in a live environment is being authentically yourself. You cannot go on live television and pretend to be somebody else. That is what actors and actresses do in movies. That is not what an audience wants from somebody that they're letting into their home. And when you turn the TV on and I'm talking to you, whether I'm talking about reality TV or like an amazing new show on Netflix, like, you're getting me. And it's taken me a long time to get here. There was a time in my early 30s when, like, I was pretending to be somebody that I was not. And coming into that authenticity is what I think allows me to get really comfortable with a situation that feels completely chaotic and somewhat out of your control. So I think that's what you see there. And listen, there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes. It's not just practicing. There's a lot of therapists involved. There's a lot of hard conversations. And there's a lot of willingness to take feedback, so you work on that stuff all the time.
Well, you're magical about it. It is what makes DNA of a Maker so authentic. And I do want to talk about that, but I want to give everyone a sense of why I kind of fell in love with you. It was love at first sight. We met at the Mary Claire Power Trip, which is this crazy thing, for those of you who don't know, where a bunch of women get on a plane and you travel across the country for 24 hours and it's exhausting, but you meet all these incredible women. And Lilliana and I are both, I think you might be a little taller than I am. I'm 5 feet. I think you're just like,
wait, I'm taller than somebody?
Know. That's why we loved each other. We're so close.
I don't know. Dyllan, I think you might be taller than me. I'm like I say I'm 5 feet, but talk about authenticity. Talk about authenticity. My driver's license is inauthentic. I am not 5'1".
All right. Well, maybe that's why I loved you, because I was a little taller. I think let's just be honest.
No, you were amazing.
Well, and we immediately connected and got together. And I remember sitting in an office, just sort of, and this is where, we're talking a lot right now about allies and, but the real word that we like is accomplices, because that says that we're in this together and we're actually going to stir up some trouble together. And that's what you and I did right away. We were like, okay, Lilliana, you're going to be interviewing on the Maker stage. Then we were like, well, you should host. We want to do this podcast. And we just jumped in together immediately.
Well, I think that's what, people that haven't had a chance to meet you in person, when you are in a room with Dyllan, y'all, it's like, I called you a fire starter in my Instagram post, because that is what you are. Like, it can be the most like basic nugget of an idea. And like Dyllan comes in and her brain works at like 1,000,000 miles an hour, and it's so thoughtful and it's different. and it gets you so excited and motivated, and then she like drops it on the thing, and then it blows up, and then she brings in all of these amazing people to execute. And it's funny that you say to me that you're not good live, because I have seen you on a maker stage in front of what I think are some of the most powerful and inspiring women on the planet, and they're already hyped, but then you come on the stage and it goes from like a 5 to a 10 instantly. So you do the same thing. I, meanwhile, am terrified to speak in front of live people, like actual human beings in a room, and you just like crush it every time. But you truly are. You are a fire starter, Dyllan. I'm so lucky and so grateful for our relationship. And you know what I really value so much is that for so long in my career, people put me in these boxes because we tend to do that. I'm guilty of it as well. And, you know, everyone's like, oh, you're like the fashion girl and you talk about fashion only and it's frivolous. And, you know, you could never talk about anything serious. And because you care about fashion, that must mean that you also don't care about your community and you don't care about politics and you don't care about Black Lives Matter. People do that because it's easy and it's convenient. And you were one of the first people that completely saw me exactly how I was. People are multidimensional. We are multifaceted. And you allowed me to be that. And you didn't like hold it against me. You were like, oh, that's great that you love fashion. I love that you love fashion, but you also love all of these other things. And how do we bring those to the forefront? And you allowed me to do that on DNA of a Maker. And thank you for that opportunity.
Oh, I'm very touched by those words. Thank you. I feel like you gave me the gift, however.
Oh,
So let's talk about DNA of a
yeah.
Maker, because it really does. It takes your authenticity. It takes this idea that your brilliance. I mean, it's not easy to sit down with 6 people who are so far ranging, right? From, you know, Kimberly Crenshaw, the woman who coined the phrase intersectionality, to, you know, Aileen Lee, who is, you know, leading the All Raise movement in Silicon Valley. So it's just this wide range of experiences. Yet you popped in with each of these 6 women and really got to the core of who they were as people. I mean, the vision for DNA of a Maker was, you know, let's go beyond just their biography and let's understand the traits that make them them, right? Is that what you discovered when you did this?
I mean, you just said it absolutely the best. You know, I think that when you think of the women, you know, it's Aileen Lee, it's Erin Andrews, it's Tarana Burke, Gretchen Carlson, Kimberly. I'm like getting goosebumps. Like the little hairs on my arm are standing up as I go through the list of women. And yeah, you know, as a journalist, I always say, you know, I go into any interview or, you know, red carpet fully prepared. I have read everything. I have watched every video. I'm an over preparer. I've always been that kid. You can ask my mom, like even in first grade, I was that girl. And something happens when you strip all of that other stuff away and you just go in with the desire to get to know somebody better, right? I'm not interviewing. They've already said what they've said about everything, right? But if you go in and you just want to understand and connect woman to woman and human to human on something, and you use that to guide the conversation, it's really magical what happens. People are naturally more vulnerable. They're willing to share more in a way that is really authentic and that really allows like the space to have kind of hard conversations. You know, you keep hearing that term now, like people are having difficult conversations and hard conversations. And, you know, what I learned from all of these women and talking to them is that they all lead their lives with so much empathy. It's the thing that they all had in common. Yes, of course, they're all leaders and change makers, and that's amazing. And that's how you know them. That's what the headlines say, right? That's what their bios say on Wikipedia.
Right.
But you know, DNA of a Maker is so much more than that. It's really getting into those stories. Like, why is Kimberly Crenshaw so powerful in the work that she does? It's because Kimberly has been asking questions of authority since she was a little girl, since the day her dad told her that she had to change the channel on the television because that was her duty and her job. And she's like, but I don't want to, and why? And, you know, when she told me that story, it also like led me to think about Gretchen too, and how, you know, when, she would, obviously we knew her before Fox News that, she'd won Miss America, right? And that's all that people knew her for. Meanwhile, this woman is an incredibly accomplished violinist. She's, so brilliantly smart. And it's the stories of that and how those stories came together to create the person that you think based off the headlines and the articles in Forbes and Wall Street Journal and New York Times. And we go in deeper than that. And I have been dying to get deeper meaning in the work that I do. And that is what DNA of a Maker gave me. If you watch me on E-News or you watch me on a red carpet, I have conversations that last 2 minutes. Those aren't conversations. Those are questions that are planned, and those are answers that are vetted by publicists, that are rehearsed 100 times, and that come back to us. We cut them up into a beautiful soundbite, and it goes on television. And there's nothing wrong with that. That is a transactional relationship that exists in television. I subscribe to it as a journalist and as a reporter on E-News. The celebrities subscribe to it. It's part of their job. That is not what DNA of a Maker is. DNA of a Maker is authentic conversations about things that are not easy to talk about with women that you want to hear from. And it is like one of the best things I've done in my career. And if you guys have not downloaded the first episode with Kimberly Crenshaw, don't download it right now because we're not done with our live yet. But as soon as we're done, download DNA of a Maker and just sit with it for 30 minutes and then share it. And you're going to, I've listened to Kimberly's conversation probably 6 times now, and I get something different every time. And I think that's what's so cool about this. Depending on the mood that you're in and the people that you're around, it impacts how you listen and the sound bites that you take in and the lessons that you leave with. So give yourself space. Like, I think of it as self-care, right? Like, people mask, sometimes people go on a run. I think the DNA of a Maker is self-care for your soul. And depending on what mood you're in, you're going to learn something different every time. So don't be afraid to listen to the episode multiple times, because I actually hosted the episode months ago and I'm still learning from it.
Same. And I think, you said something that really meant a lot to me, where you said, thinking about people, people put people in a box. Mm-hmm. And I think for all of these women, you do sort of, when you have one moment in your career that stands out, people think of you only as that one moment. So even Kimberly Crenshaw, they think of her as intersectionality, and that's what, and you guys had a beautiful conversation about that. But it's like digging deeper and understanding these leaders and these makers, and also that they have, what I found amazing, so many different traits. When there's no one way to be a leader.
No. And, I said this to you when we did our podcast and we recorded our episode was, I think the beauty of this series is that I think so many of us think that, Kimberly Crenshaw was born to be Kimberly Crenshaw, right? That's what we think, Tarana Burke, she was born to lead Me Too. And yes, part of that is true. I think that there's destiny out there and we all participate in our own destiny. But what I walked away from was I can build a community around me that can support me in doing all of this, and just having gone through the last few weeks and thinking about how important it is for me to be an accomplice in the Black Lives Matter movement, I have rebuilt my community. Not only have I rebuilt, but I've evaluated and reevaluated the community that I participate in, because some of those people aren't going to help me be better. They're not going to be my accomplice in this, right? They're not going to help me grow and learn and evolve. And that's the beautiful thing about this, is that if you're not born with these intrinsic traits, if you think I'm not great at leading, or I'm not great at public speaking, or, I'm not great at rounding people up and being an advocate for the things that I believe passionately in, well, then put people in your community that are, and lean on them to help you be better. And that's what I learned. That to me has been the biggest thing that I came away from this with, which is just build the community. If you don't have it, put people in your life that can help you get it. And it's
look
amazing.
At people who aren't like yourself, right? One of the things that I learned from, the brilliant Share the Mic Now campaign that Bozema and Lovey and Glennon all put together. I was so blown away.
That was amazing.
But what Bozema said, we did a live last week, and she said, one of the things that we can control is our community. We look at these social feeds, they're all our friends, do they all look like us? Are
Mm-hmm.
we just, and it's not conscious necessarily, but
Mm-hmm.
you have to make an effort to make sure that your community is looking out for you. And I think DNA of a Maker does show you those different perspectives, not only about race, but just individuality,
Mm-hmm.
right? And what that we're all individual people, and understanding what makes us all tick.
Yeah, no, and I think that's also the really fun part is, you know, we at the end of each DNA of a Maker show, we do this rapid fire
So
when
fun.
we ask like really interesting small questions like, you know, coffee or tea, you know, driver seat or passenger seat. And it's so fun to hear their answers because yeah, they're all so unique and so individual, but what you think you know, they're not going to answer. You know what I like? There's no. It's crazy to me how different we all are. But at the end of the day, like how similar we are in the things that we want for ourselves and our community and our families and friends. And it's just it was too much.
No, DNA, the lightning round is something that we also do in our Makers interviews.
Yes, yes,
It's like it's part of the DNA of Makers. And
right.
my favorite, this is where you just get so surprised. I always try to guess. So this was with Oprah, no
Oh
big
God.
deal, but we did the lightning round and we said domestically skilled or domestically challenged. And you, of course, think she's going to say challenged. I mean, I say
Yeah.
challenged, and she's like, oh no, skilled. And then I said, well, what do you mean by that? She's like, I'm really good at cleaning up dog shit. And I was like, are you kidding me? Oprah Winfrey is
What?
cleaning up dog
She
shit?
said that?
Yes. But that's what, oh, someone's saying we have a sound issue. Anyway, yeah, dog shit was really fun. And it just goes to show that we're all so different at the end of the day.
We
Well, okay.
are so fun.
So tell me, like, if you had one takeaway from hosting this, or maybe even one favorite moment, what would that be?
Ooh. I guess my biggest takeaway, or one of my biggest takeaways, and this is something that I think I've been, like I said, you know, I'm a work in progress. I think most of us are. You know, it's reframing. We talk about strengths and weaknesses, and one of the questions that we ask in DNA of a Maker are, you know, like if there was one thing that you're born with that, you know, you could improve on or make better, or what is your weakness? It's a great question to ask. But I think it's more important to think about why we think of those things as weaknesses
Mm.
and who assigns the value to something being weak or strong.
Mm.
And if we allow other people to assign value to those things and we take that in, like, what does that do to us? And when I was interviewing Gretchen Carlson, I am such a huge fan of her as a journalist. I'm just, I mean, she's incredible. She's impressive. She's so well spoken. She's so smart, and she's so strong, so strong. And, you know, I think about some of the comments that people have made, you know, about me on air or, you know, as a producer or as a host. And sometimes the feedback that I've gotten, not just from men, but women have said this to me is, you know, I hear and I've been told this, and I think you should know this because I think you should work on it, is that, you know, you can be difficult. And I was like, okay, well, you know,
What?
yeah, I've never heard that. But, you know, listen, people don't love to tell you the truth. So these are people that I respect. And I'm like, okay. And when I left Gretchen's episode, I really thought about that. And I had just been told that note. And I thought, you know, I bet there was a time when Gretchen was at Fox that she was described as difficult. Okay, she was probably described as inconvenient at times. And who's saying that? And what are they actually saying about her? Because what does the word difficult really mean? Because I'll tell you why people might think I'm difficult. People might think I'm difficult because I expect the best of myself. And I also expect the best of all of the people around me.
Mm-hmm.
People might think I'm difficult because I don't turn in subpar work. I don't do it. Everybody's time is valuable, and I'm not giving you something that hasn't left me perfect. And if that is what makes me difficult, I can tell you this, Dyllan, I will continue to be difficult in my work for the rest of my life. and reframing what other people say are your weaknesses and thinking of them as your strengths or as your superpowers, as we like to say on DNA of a Maker, is a mind-blowing opportunity for me, for you, for everyone watching this right now. So all of those little whispers about you that exist, oh, she's difficult, or, you know, she's a perfectionist, or she's inconvenient, oh, she speaks too loudly. Like, okay, sure. But like, that is what makes me me. And that is what makes me great, by the way. And so that was the biggest thing I took away, not just from
I love
Gretchen's
that.
episode, but as I talked to the women, you know, and we went through the course of the interviews, I was like, God, each one of them, I'm sure has had this moment where, you know, whatever their strengths are have been perceived as a weakness. And it is not the world's job to fix that for you. It is for you to take ownership of those words and say, no, 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 no. You don't get to define what those words mean to me. I get to define what those words mean and how I use them. And that was, I mean, if that's the only thing I took away, we win on DNA of a Maker.
All right. I love it. Our turn our weaknesses into our strengths. It's so true.
So easy, right?
You know what? The other thing I love is it reminds me of a Diane von Furstenberg quote, which is the most important relationship you have is the relationship with yourself.
Yeah, it is.
Right? And if you
It really
have that
is.
relationship, you're able to turn those weaknesses into your strengths and know that there's, you know what that really means. Anyway, we have
100%.
3 more minutes. I want to make sure all of our viewers know quickly who the interviews are. And we're releasing them every Tuesday for the next, for 5 more weeks.
5 weeks, 6 weeks, something like that. Yes. Yeah.
So next up is Tarana Burke.
Tarana Burke on July 7th. Yes.
Okay.
Then I think we have Erin Andrews, Gretchen Carlson. Yep.
Okay. And then Diane Guerrero.
Mm-hmm.
Are you all proud of me for my pronunciation?
I was going to say, look at you rolling those R's.
It's all, by the way, we do need to do a little shout out to sweet Nerese, who was my assistant at the time, who you talk about being an accomplice. When we met, she was my assistant. She's now following in your footsteps. She's the host of Yahoo Lifestyle and Entertainment shows, and she's amazing. And you really were an accomplice for her. And so,
oh, she was. Listen, it's like I think when I saw her and I was like, this girl has got so much light, and like she's gonna go on to do amazing things. And by the way, you know what Nerese is? Authentically herself, and she is the most herself when she's in front of the camera on those shows.
All right, so
love
everyone look up
her.
Nerese Castillo, right?
Yes,
go
please.
find her and follow her. And then my current assistant, I was like, how do you say Guerrero? And she gave me 2 versions, the Spanish one, and then she said, you could say it like this. You don't have to roll your R's, basically. So thank you, Rosie.
You nailed it.
So that's Tuesday. I have a list here, July 21st. Then the 28th is Erin Andrews.
Yes.
For those of you who don't know who she is the reporter for a sports reporter. And that was an amazing episode.
She's incredible. She is like I think she's one of the best. I mean, in broadcast, like she's one of the best when it comes to sports. And talk about a powerhouse. Do you know how hard it is to be a female reporter in mainstream sports? Erin goes out there and does it better than any of those guys. And you're going to want to listen to her interview for sure. And then Aileen Lee, who I invited to margaritas with me when she's in New York next time. I'm like, I love that this woman is literally like founded All Raise and is responsible for bringing women into VC and like such an amazing investor. And I'm like, do you want to get margaritas? Because that's how I left that. I felt like when I left these episodes, I was friends with these women and I was like, God, how lucky am I that I get to sit across from them and walk away feeling like they're my friend? Like, what is this world?
Well, and I don't know if you noticed this, but there is a theme in all of them where they say, they all compliment you in their own ways of just saying how you really made them feel comfortable, how smart you do over prepare. You come to an interview making everyone feel loved and that you know their story better than they even know their own story. And so I just really want to leave this with a huge gratitude to you and encouragement. I love what you told everyone to do is listen once, but also listen twice, 3 times, because you'll get something out of it each and every time. So any parting words for us, you rock star?
Vote. Please vote. Vote in all of the elections, not just the general. It's important to do it. And it's your right, it's your duty, it's your responsibility. So don't push it to the side, and get your friends and family to vote. I always say this, like I say, get your tias, your primos, and your primas all together, make it a voting party, and make it a community event. It is so important, and there's no more important time to do it than right now.
All right, everybody, you heard it. Lilliana, do whatever Lilliana says. Vote, wear a mask, listen to DNA.
Oh, yeah. And wear a sun hat, please.
And wear a sun hat. Let's bookend it.
There they are.
Well, Lilliana, you have a beautiful set. I don't think I disclosed, like, that's my set. You have an unmade bed.
So I did make the bed.
Yeah, I know. You know what? We're both, that's what makes the world go round. We can be completely different.
Exactly.
All right, Lilliana.
Exactly.
Sending lots of love. Mwah.
Mwah. Enjoy. Thank you so much, Dylan. Bye.
Okay, bye.